Hello and welcome back to Cooking the Books with me, Gilly Smith, the podcast which takes us through 4 food moments from the books of our favourite food writers. It's about all of life through the prism of food. And this week I'm with the Indonesian chef behind my last sellout supper club, Petty Elliott.
Of course we know gado-gado sauce, but to add ginger you make something else. To add even sliced lime leaf you make pecel. Or we have curry dog, we have siomai as well.
Her book, The Indonesian Table, is a seminal work on the food of this archipelagic state of 17,000 islands. We might think we know the flavours of Bali, Java, maybe even Sumatra, but Minangkabau, Manado, Padang? Probably not. Petty first brought Indonesian food to a hungry public 20 years ago as a food journalist and chef, cooking for some of the most influential people in the world since. But as we met at the British Library to talk about her book, I asked her about choosing this most hallowed of literary venues and being a card-carrying member of a very British institution.
For me, British Library is a place for research, and there's so much about Indonesia here. And as Indonesian who married to British person, and both my children, they are British. And I'm Indonesian, so I think I have a huge connection with British, and I'm involved since, 20 years in several British foundation or charity in Indonesia until today.
Yeah, but you represent Indonesia on the world stage as a chef. So, for example, you've just cooked for the spouses of the G20. There's some very exciting news coming up about you cooking for our royalty. But all of this is as sort of the Queen of Indonesia.
I know it's an amazing opportunity to have these experiences and then to be asked to cook to so many very influenced people in the world. And for me, I just want to take this opportunity really to promote Indonesia culture, Indonesian food culture, and to remind the world how Indonesia is an amazing country which has so many history and contributed to the shape of world cuisine and world history as well.
Yeah, and it is, strangely, a bit of a gap in the market, really, isn't it? We've got Thai food, we've got Chinese food, we've got Indian food, we've got all sorts of Asian food, but we haven't really turned our attention to Indonesian food. I love it. I grew up on Malay food because I grew up in Malaysia, but it is, and possibly because it is so diverse, we don't really understand it. And we'll go through some of your food moments to kind of unpack what that is. But you've written a book which really is a seminal book on Indonesian food. It's more than just your story of your upbringing and your grandmother, who obviously we're going to talk about too. It is the story of those islands. Just give us some of the background to Indonesia as an archipelago state.
You're right, Gilly, how Indonesia seems kind of no space or no place in the world stage because maybe our culture, our nation is too big, and even for Indonesian, we don't know what to promote because we have too many.
Yeah.
But of course, slowly it's happening in the last 10 years. I think there's so much work from many parties, of course, to promote Indonesia and to kind of remind the world. You know, the Spice Island is in Indonesia. There's so many kingdom in Indonesia, around the archipelago of Indonesia, since 6 centuries. And then imagine the world without nutmeg and cloves. And of course, these 2 spices, 3, including the maize, are indigenous Indonesia. And then as a maritime countries, oh my gosh, it's just the role of Indonesia actually is there, but seems, I'm not sure, is it forgotten or we haven't really promoted in maximum capacity?
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in order to tell its story, you have to kind of homogenize all those different cultures. And one of the glorious things about Indonesia is that Java is very different to Bali and Sulawesi and Manado, where you came from, which we'll talk about. in order to kind of tell that very clear story on Instagram, you have to make it less complex.
Imagine to promote a country the size is like the whole Europe together. Yeah. Even to write my book, I had problem to choose the recipes or to talk more about certain islands, because it's just, my book is, for me, it's only introduction about Indonesia, because it's only 100 recipes or maybe 150s. But there's so much to say. For me, of course, I was born in North Sulawesi Island in Manado, and my family moved to Java when I was 13. And again, only like from one culture, Manado culture, to Java, Jakarta, I have to learn new language. I explore new food, new culture, new everything. Yeah, it's just so crazy big.
Well, let's break it down. I mean, we can do in your food moments. You start with the sour fish soup, the ikan kuah asam, and this is from Manado. This is your grandmother's recipe. So tell us a little bit about your grandmother and where you grew up.
Well, my grandmother, this is my maternal grandmother. She's half Chinese and half Malay, and she always wear kebaya, or tunic. Never wear like one dress. It's the opposite of my paternal grandmother, whom she's half Dutch. So it's quite interesting. Even for me, within my family, I have so many different cultures around. My grandfather from my mom's side, he's Muslim and mostly, my father he's Protestant, my mother Catholic. So it's just crazy. It's just my grandma taught me about cooking from my early age. It's quite fascinating because this experience, spending time with her in her traditional kitchen in North Sulawesi in Manado, it's like introduction for me to learn the basic, not only about Manado food, but the understanding about regional Indonesian food. About sambal, about bumbu. That is the basic.
Let me just ask you about bumbu, because at our supper club that you did at my house recently, you made a bumbu, and it is the mother for all sorts of things. Once you have a bumbu paste in your jar, in your fridge, it's an entry for all Indonesian food. Tell us what it is.
Exactly. Well, bumbu is spice paste. There are, of course, white bumbu, red or yellow. The white consists only garlic, shallot, ginger, or perhaps galangal, or even aromatic ginger. And from the white you add chili, it become red. And then from the red you add turmeric, it become yellow, which is spice turmeric. And then from this basic bumbu you add herbs, whatever, depend on the region. You add perhaps lemongrass, pandan leaf, lime leaves, curry leaf, in Sumatra, or basil. And from the basil, from this basic bumbu herbs, there's some region you put different varieties of spices. Could be 8, could be 10. And in Manado, we don't use a lot of dried spices. We only use cinnamon and nutmeg and cloves. Not compared than in Sumatra. There's cumin, coriander. There's more. It's just mind blowing, really. But to understand about Indonesian food, I think it's good if you can learn the sambal and the bumbu, because the bumbu is the basic to create curry or stew, or even marinated for some satay, let's say, and adding dried spices. And once you understand that, and it's so easy. The thing is, Indonesian cuisine got influence from the whole world cuisine: Chinese cuisine, Arabic, European, Peranakan. Of course, we share with Peranakan cuisine, and whatever in the world we also have in Indonesia. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to you to keep the traditions. You say that you've got to learn the rules before breaking them. It is very important to keep the tradition before moving on. You posted a wonderful film, which I kind of added on my story the other day, of you hunkering down, doing the traditional kind of cooking over the big flames. Now, this is the traditional kind of cooking, but there's always that question, isn't there? Is it about keeping women down? The reality is that actually it's really hard to pound those spices and to cook like that. It takes hours.
Exactly.
Where's the place of women in the kitchen in Indonesia as you promote these traditional values?
Wow, I think for me, the woman in Indonesia is is like the library or the source of knowledge and the spirit to keep the culture going, because it's fascinating. The thing is, I was the pioneer of Indonesian food in Indonesia through my writing 20 years ago and my collaboration with chefs in Indonesia and around the world. But for me, gosh, I really treasure my experience in my grandmother in her kitchen. And now if I travel around Indonesia, I can still find the traditional ambience, and technique and then spirit exactly, when I was cooking with my grandmother. So if I travel to remote places around Indonesia, it's still there. And of course, these days, well-known Indonesian chef or even foreigner chef, they will travel around Indonesia to find the story of the dishes or the traditional cooking technique, with cooking with bamboo or banana leaves or with fire, cooking with hot stones, and they are actually get inspired and to try to replicate to the modern beautiful restaurant in Jakarta or Bali.
And you can do that. I mean, you left Manado and you went to live in Jakarta. Did you still cook in that kind of intricate, very sort of traditional way using food processors?
Perhaps the cooking technique, no. But, of course, I'm trying to, to bring the traditional dish with modern technique, perhaps using oven, for example. Although I really, I adore cooking with banana leaf, but maybe sometimes it's too hard to even have barbecue during winter. So I put the banana, let's say fish with banana leaf with spices, wrapped in banana leaf in the oven, cook in the oven. But for me, it's very important we acknowledge the tradition, we value, we talk more. Don't forget the tradition, because with this, modern technology era, it's so easy. Somebody just use whatever channel, and they think that is the traditional, but it's not, because people very quickly just demo within like a minute or 2 minutes video. And they think, oh, that is the traditional, but it's not. We have to talk more, or to inform that the traditional way is this way, and then the modern way is this way. At least the narrative is we share the real story, right?
Yes, and it is about story, isn't it? That is the most important thing. It's much, much more than food. It's ways of life, and that has value, because, of course, then people feel better about who they are within their, they don't necessarily... I'm just thinking about the economic migrants who are leaving Indonesia in search of a new life. Well, actually, putting your food on the world stage actually makes you feel better about who you are and where you come from. I went to a wonderful supper club with some Sri Lankan women who couldn't speak English at all. They'd fled the war, they'd made home in London, and they'd been brought in to cook their food for, people like me, and they couldn't believe how much we loved their food and how much we wanted to know about their food.
But this is the other things, I think, for Indonesian, from Indonesian mostly, maybe we don't have enough talent in global stage or in international stage. Of course, there are many talent in Indonesia, but maybe Indonesian also like just to live in Indonesia. We don't have this situation that we have to leave the country, right, for a certain reason. But Or people study abroad, they go back to Indonesia because it's a lovely country, you know, with tropical beach and the nice weather. And then it seems a very easy life to live in Indonesia, honestly.
Your second food moment, gado-gado and chicken satay, possibly the most well-known of the Indonesian recipes. Why did you choose these of all the 100 recipes that you've put in the book?
Because for me, moving to Jakarta from Manado, and I never tried gado-gado or satay before in Manado, so it's something fascinating. And especially I love peanut butter. You know, in Manado, we use peanut butter to spread on toast or bread, not toast, but just actually roll, or because we never toast our bread in Manado, we just slice bread and you put the peanut butter, and that is my introduction of peanut butter. But in Java, of course, peanut butter, not only peanut butter, but there's so many layers of flavor with tamarind, chili, even a touch of lime juice or slice of lime leaves as well. And you know, gosh, there's so many dishes using peanut sauce, not only gado-gado and satay, there's more. So it's just incredible. So for me, I just love the layers of flavor of peanut sauce, of peanut butter.
And it's also a shorthand, isn't it? One particular flavour, you know, peanuts and Indonesia. And you go straight to Bali.
And the thing is, you know, let's say, of course, we know gado-gado sauce, but to add ginger, you make something else. To add even sliced lime leaf, you make pecel, or we have karedok, we have, there's so many, honestly. It's just, siomai as well. We use peanut to make peanut sambal. You know, our siomai is not like Chinese dish, but actually it's like fish dumpling, boiled potato or steamed potato, steamed tofu, and cabbage. So that is our siomai. It's fascinating.
Now, you've mentioned sambal. I'm sure everybody knows what sambal is, but it is absolutely the quintessential accompaniment to absolutely everything in Indonesian food. Tell us about what you know about sambal.
You know, it's fascinating for me just to talk about sambal because the key ingredients to make sambal, of course, is chili. And chili is not indigenous Indonesian, so it's introduced by Spanish to Indonesia. And, you know, to talk about sambal, we just have to understand sambal. Yes, it's condiment, but the basic sambal basically is only two ingredients, chili and salt. And you can put different ingredients to create whatever sambal. Let's say to create shallot sambal, you just add cooked shallot to the chili and salt and garlic perhaps, and tomato and pineapple, mango, ginger flower, or shrimp paste with tomato. There's like endless. There's like 100 or even 200 different sambal around the archipelago. The thing is, for me, I know very well sambal is condiment, but imagine to make sauce with only 3 ingredients, and you can find in my book, of course, let's say like this duck. I love duck, and it's so easy to cook duck in England. And just sear the duck and make the sambal soya. It's only sweet soya, lime juice, chili, and maybe a touch of salt if you need it. That's it. Can you imagine? And it's so beautiful. You have layers of spicy, sweet, tangy. That is like to make this dish maybe, I don't know, less than 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your third food moment is barbecue. You use barbecue seafood, but I'm just thinking about putting a sambal with that. It's so easy. It totally elevates it, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, is that what you were thinking when you chose that as your third food moment?
Yes, that's right. Because, of course, Indonesia is archipelago, so we have many different seafood. And the things is the best to have barbecue seafood actually with sambal. You can have 7 different sambal in this variety of barbecue seafood in the book, and it's so easy to do, and
you can do it here.
Definitely.
I mean, you know, we have wonderful seafood here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Give us an example of something that typical British seafood that would go very well with one of your sambals.
Oh, everything. The thing is, my book also feature British seafood or vegetables that are available here, which is, I know is not, maybe people we think that not authentic. Even I use not the common vegetables for gado-gado, let's say, but I just use everything available, easy for people to buy in supermarket or farmers market. We don't need to have long beans or even water spinach or kangkong all the way from Indonesia or Southeast Asia country, because maybe I'm more concerned about the carbon footprint. But of course, to talk about British seafood, mackerel is amazing, sea bream.
What would you do with the mackerel? Because mackerel is actually a very strong flavour. What would you use to cut through it in terms of a sambal?
Actually, for me, I know this is my grandmother way to prepare fish after everything clean. You season the fish with salt and lime or lime juice or lemon, if you like, and it just bring freshness, bring tanginess rather than just plain and or adding the citrus later. We always put before cooking it and put, let's say, dabu-dabu. Dabu-dabu is Manadonese raw tomato sambal. Basically, it's like salsa. It's so easy. Again, you need only shallot, chili, tomato, lime juice. You can put basil or mint, and mint is Manadonese ingredients, which forgotten, sadly. But I remember when I was small, I know mint, but now Manadonese hardly cook with mint leaf, which is interesting. And that is so easy, right?
Yeah,
to make,
you did that for our supper club.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the things people think to cook Indonesian food is so difficult, but it depends what you want to do. Surely to cook rendang is take 4 hours, but to make something like grilled fish or pan-fried fish with the dabu-dabu is so easy. It's 10-15 minutes to do.
Well, your fourth food moment is the beef rendang, and is possibly my favourite recipe of all time, actually. This is something very similar to what my parents used to cook when I was growing up. Tell us about why you chose this one.
It's fascinating, of course, to talk about rendang, because I know, you're right, rendang is like the most well-known dish from Indonesia. Even CNN travel rendang is the most famous dish, Indonesian dish around the world, which is fascinating. But there's several reasons why I choose rendang. Of course, for me, first, the cooking technique. The cooking technique actually remind me of my grandma. Basically, when she cooked her coconut oil, basically that's you do. You cook until the coconut cream turn to kind of oil, and you have the sediment. So the sediment with rendang is the sediment in rendang actually is mix of the sediment of the coconut oil with spices. So whatever you do to have this cooking technique will be amazing, delicious. Doesn't matter, not necessarily with beef, but even with whatever, potato or...
Because it's the absolute umami, isn't it?
It just creates huge umami.
Delicious
flavor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You say that it comes from Minangkabau, which is a matriarchy.
Yes, that's right, exactly. This is another thing why I like to talk about rendang, because the world knows very well about Java culture, but nobody knows about Manado or Padang or Minangkabau, West Sumatra. It is amazing. The history is just so wonderful, because they have influence from, of course, the Arabic, the Indian. The trading started, of course, long time ago. But there's no even kind of recognition or even like feature of Minangkabau culture in any international.
So tell us about it.
Yeah, it's because, of course, I think honestly, everything that out from Indonesia is very Javanese centric. Everything about Java and Bali. They said Java and Bali, but not outside. Although within Indonesia, of course, there's a lot of interest for young chef or food writer to explore outside Java and Bali. But we have to, particularly myself, I want to promote more the region that the people outside Indonesia, they don't know.
Well, we're all after secret kitchens and secret histories. I mean, I'm fascinated by this matriarchy. How does it play out? What does it look like?
It's quite fascinating. It's very fascinating in so many ways, because in West Sumatra, you will find the culture is very Muslim. But again, in West Sumatra, the woman has important role to make decision, not only within the family, but even in community. So it's very contrast sometimes, right? Because, of course, the perception of Muslim culture, the woman doesn't have place or doesn't have voice. But in West Sumatra, the woman has more voice than anyone.
In what sense? What do they make decisions about?
About even, let's say the encouragement of the son. If they have son, not only with family but like bigger family, the woman have to make sure these men, they have to have experience to work abroad or study abroad and come back. And when this person come back with maybe his wife, so this woman have to look after or have a duty to look after the young wife, and to talk about the Padang or the Minangkabau culture, and it's still very kind of alive.
So the women are the holders of the traditions.
That's right.
And this is very much what you want to be seen as, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, I know, the thing is like this. From outside, of course, the people outside Indonesia think Indonesia is Muslim country, but we are not Muslim country. We are biggest populated Muslim, yes, but we're not Muslim country. We have this amazing philosophy as a country. Philosophy and motto is Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. It means unity in diversity. The state actually really recognize many different religions, and then we are trying, of course, and are really confident that Indonesia will be like this forever, because we really believe in this unity and diversity. And considering we have, let's say, 1,000 different ethnicities, 700 languages, 5 different religions, and up to now we still live in harmony. So we've been having this culture not only after independence, but since long time ago, since even Sriwijaya and Majapahit, which is a kingdom started in 6th, 7th to 13th centuries. So I really want the world actually to see Indonesia. Actually, we are pioneering to bring the community to live in peace and harmony. And I'm really proud to be Indonesian and to share more unity and diversity. And wow, we need that, right? Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to pop over to my Substack for extra bites of petty. Just search for Gilly Smith on Substack. And I'll see you next week.